I didn't inside.
Let the credits run as with the sound off. So I want to invite the panelists tonight to come up. Ruben Dwight, Harry Shaw, Gale Muhammad, if you can come up to the stage and join me. So let me start by thanking Steer again for organizing this incredible conference this weekend and for having us be a part of it. My name is Matt Pillischer. I directed and produced the movie, and I am an activist and a lawyer who's worked on issues of criminal justice for, I guess, about 5 years. I made this movie, I finished it about 2 years ago, and I've been touring it around the country. I've toured it to about 15 plus states personally, and it's shown anymore without me. And wherever I go, I try and put together panel discussions with folks like this who are local and working to change the system, and particularly people who are formerly incarcerated, who are, driving this movement. And I believe it is a movement that is starting. It's small, but it's definitely starting to be a movement. So I want to welcome them, and I'm going to introduce them briefly, and we'll start with Gale. I'm going to ask you each to just say 2 or 3 minutes about sort of who you are, your experience with the criminal justice and prison system, and then after that, I'm going to open it up to you all for questions and comments, and the panel will be able to react, and we can have a little discussion here until about 9 o'clock or so. So with that, let me say Gale Muhammad. I'm privileged to be working with her and organizing here in the Trenton area now and across New Jersey. She is the founder and head of Women Who Never Give Up, and she's been active for about 20 years on issues of incarceration, and particularly from the family perspective, who's on the outside, advocating for loved ones inside. So, Gale, I'll let you know when you get to 3 minutes.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you for having me. I want to thank you so much for your work and putting this film together for the education of communities, and this is just so awesome. As Matt said, my name is Gale Muhammad. I'm the president and founder of Women Who Never Give Up. I founded Women Who Never Give Up in 2005. My husband died in prison here in Trenton, New Jersey, March the 5th, 1997. He had cancer, and it opened my eyes to so many things that you don't think about when your loved one gets a prison sentence or goes off to serve time, that God forbid they get sick, they die. He didn't get a death sentence. He was sentenced to do time, and ultimately he wound up losing his life because of an illness. And that sparked something in me that just to this day that keeps me going. We need a better criminal justice system in our state and throughout this country. It, to me, is unforgivable that there's nothing in place to help people while they're in prison or when they come home. And the fact that 17 years ago when I lost my husband, there was no fantastic students looking to help and work with people in prison, and there weren't professors doing the work inside the prisons that they are doing today. My Shiro, I called Bonnie Kerness from the American Friends Service Committee, and that was 17 years ago. And I walked into her office, and there in Newark, it was the only person that I could go to just talk about prison and what happens to people. And there I walked into Bonnie's office, and I looked at a wall, and it was a collage of just people, family members on prison visits, and there in that mess of people was my wedding picture of me and my husband. And I was like, how did you get that? He you know, prisoners, they have to have an out, and the American Friends Service Committee has been around for so many years that I believe our office in Newark has pictures of everybody who's been in our prison system in New Jersey. So after seeing my wedding picture on Bonnie's wall, I knew I was at home. So I began to just cry because I didn't believe human beings could be treated like that. I come from food and beverage background in the casino industry. Customer service is my life's work. And so I thought that happened in any industry, in any entity. But when I started visiting my husband and I seen how family members were treated, I kept thinking, I've never done anything in my life that would put me here. All I'm trying to do is keep some light and love and sunshine on somebody in a dark place. And if I'm treated like this, I can imagine what it was like on the other side of the wall. So, needless to say, I began to hold support group meetings in the prison after visits with the women. And we sat and talked about what we thought we could do to help make a system better. And through that, 17 years later, I have some great friends that I've been able to work with in our state, and one of them is here. I always have to pay homage to her because without her, we couldn't do half of the work that we do, and that's Jean Ross, who is our prisoner's lawyer. We love her, and I want everybody to understand that if you don't have attorneys to help, to do pro bono work, then, you know, it's just really hard. So, and I can talk forever, so just tell me.
We'll come back to you, of course. Ruben, let me pass it. You want to go now? You want to wait till the end? Ruben's joining us for the first time public speaking on the stage, so it's a little scary. So give him a round of applause. So Ruben finished a 7-year sentence back on December 5th, and he is now focused on getting custody of his 2-year-old daughter and being a father. And Ruben, if you want to just talk a little bit about your experience in the system and how it was coming out, and I'll let you know when you've gotten to 3 minutes, and we'll certainly have more time to talk during the discussion.
I'm going to start by saying, I'm going to start from when I was young. I was a child that suffered from child abuse, neglect. I didn't have no guidance coming up, which led me to the streets. It led me to gang banging, carrying guns and all that stuff. But I actually had more than 14 years in the system. I've seen people get abused by COs, called tied and beat with clubs and all their teeth knocked out their mouth and all that stuff and that nature. Since I've been home, I just maxed out 7 years on December 5th. I came home, I was still gang affiliated, I still had intentions to want to sell drugs after being stabbed 17 times. I still had that intention to want to come home and sell drugs. What changed my whole trade of focus was that I got organized with the weight program. Mr. Shaw, Mr. Stokes, they got on my heels heavy, so I kind of walked away from selling drugs and I kind of walked away from gang life. So now, in the process of all that, a lot of positive things have been coming my way. I actually got a whole new family now and stuff. So I mean, that's a good thing. So the focus is to continue to strive to get my daughter and keep doing positive things, keep my head on the right track because I'm not trying to go back to prison. I don't wish that on my worst enemy, so that's it.
That's great. Thank you. Last but not least, we have Perry Shaw III, who is a former correctional officer, and he is the executive director of the Better Way New Jersey, and they work with returning citizens, people re-entering society, as well as people who are at risk. So Perry, thanks for being here, and if you could give us your 3 minutes.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I like that better. First and foremost, I would like to thank Princeton University and Spear, and most importantly, Matt. Every time I watch this film, I think it's like the 4th or 5th time, it still touches my heart. Because even though it took place in Philadelphia, a lot of film that you did, it still looks like and smells like you smell the greatness of this film. It reminds me still of Trenton. Even though it's right across the river, a lot of the row homes remind me of places in Trenton, Lower Section, Stuyvesant Avenue, places like that. And so the young man was walking on the streets talking about some issues and crimes he was having, just reminded me and my members that walk through our doors. I know I have a few minutes, I'll just give you a little bit of background of myself. I am Perry Shaw III. I'm blessed enough to have Perry Shaw Jr. right there. That's my father. I'll just give him a shout out just because we share the same name, but because he's the co-founder of this organization. Myself and him, my father's also a retired prison officer, and 2 of the individuals started this program. While in the prison system, as a corrections officer, the first thing you come in is kind of brainwashed. I'm going to be as honest as I can. When you walk through those doors, they brainwash you, they break you down, build you back up, and they train you to basically look at individuals as numbers, as just pieces of meat, and that's what it is. Even though your name as an officer is corrections, to correct behavior, not to demean. That's the way it's built in you, it's instilled in you to look at individuals as objects, not as individuals. It took me a short period of time to realize, you know what, I was brainwashed, and this is not the way I was raised. I was raised to look at individuals as individuals. It took me a period of time to say, you know what, this isn't me, and I had to go back to that mindset. So I started doing things that most officers don't do. Every single inmate I saw was sir. And a lot of the guys thought I was calling him son when I said sir. And they kind of looked at me kind of sideways. I said, no, I'm saying sir, out of respect. And from that point on, I gave respect, I got respect. I wasn't concerned about my fellow officers, whether they thought I was soft or not, because in fact, they knew I wasn't. If they thought I was, we talked about it in the parking lot. The reason why I bring those things up is this. Even though I had that respect with the inmates, I also served in the gang task force. I was the one who went in cells and found little notes that was written by gang individuals, and I could tell based upon the writing who was Crip, who was Blood, who was Latin King, who was Neanderthal, who was Montana, who was 13. I could tell those things because that's what I was trained to do. But at the same time, my approach was, okay, listen, this is the lifestyle you chose while you were inside of prison and before you came to prison. What do you want to do? A lot of times individuals respond with, I don't know. I don't have a plan. I don't have options. What can I do now? The training programs I took in prison, they don't help me. The certificates I got when I took them home before, nobody accepted them. People look at my jacket, they look at me as a person. What can I do? And me as a rookie, my response was try harder. I didn't realize some of the obstacles and issues individuals would face. So I began to sit there and listen. 1, 2, 3, 4, 500 guys telling me the problems and issues they were facing. So I started jotting their thoughts and opinions down and trying to do some of the things I did in mental health, putting together an IHP, an individual rehabilitation plan, working with short-term, long-term goals, making phone calls to other organizations. While I'm still in the tier, I'm not a social worker, I'm a corrections officer. But at the same time, those guys who I helped inside the prison did return to prison. And so, as time went along, other officers came over hearing about what I was doing. So I got called to the Office of Internal Affairs. What are you doing? I'm doing my job. Your job is to be a social worker. If you continue that, you're going to have to let you go. I love my job because of the fact I put food on the table. But I didn't like my job because of how it made me feel. Because I was being prosperous off the fact somebody being incarcerated, somebody being locked down 24 hours, 7 days a week. And don't get me wrong, there are some individuals in the prison system that don't ever need to come out. But most of those individuals will be coming out. They're your brothers, your sisters, your aunts, your uncles, your friends, your family. Whether you want to admit it or not, each and every person here knows someone who has been incarcerated. And that's the reason why we have to continue to do good things to try and provide a program for these individuals. Because we don't want to see them coming back over and over again. We don't want to see them being a detriment to our tax system. We want them to see them be a tax provider to our tax system. That's the reason why we started our program. To provide options, to provide training, to provide counseling, and most importantly, to provide employment. Because it's kind of hard to gang or steal from somebody if you're working 6, 8, 10, 12 hours a day. You just go on top and be out there banging. You're just trying to put food on the table. So I hope that tonight we can have an engaging conversation, because I got a lot of things I'd like to share, and Mr. Dwight does, and I know she does also. The most important thing is I think this film has opened the eyes of everybody, just saying, you know what, these individuals behind these bars, they're individuals also.
Thank you. So we have a lot of experience up here, and I know we have a lot of experience in the audience too. Let me open it up for questions or comments, and if you could just raise your hand real high, and I'll call on you, and you can raise your hand while someone else is talking, and I'll try and drop down and call on you afterwards. I'm going to cut you off after a minute, just so that we have a real democratic discussion, as many people can talk as possible. So try and get your point out or question out within a minute. I mean, I think it's actually a good place to start if anyone has any questions or disagreements with what was raised in the film with our panelists, so that we can address them. But any kind of comment or question. Go ahead.
I would ask Mr. Dwight, has he been able to find employment, and what has that experience been like?
Actually, the employment process, I like the situation where I'm dealing with my daughter, and like the schedule, it's kind of up and down. So it's like if I do get a job, I'll be fired because of diapers, because they want me to do all these appointments and stuff. However, through the away program, I do have employment when my schedule is open. So, it's like a toss-up, but once I get my daughter back, I have full-time employment.
Ruben, do you want to talk about a little bit about if there were any other kind of obstacles you faced coming out, or what it was like, even just mentally readjusting coming out?
Mentally, because of the fact that I don't deal with my family because they just like the people in the street. I was kind of alone until I got affiliated with this program, Better Way and stuff. So it was like I came on nothing. So eventually I was messed up because that's what kind of led me to want to go back to doing the things that I was doing, because it was like I was in this box and didn't have nothing. But an anonymous phone call came to me one day, and it was a brother, Mrs. Stokes, back there from the program, and he said, "Don't make me come find you." So I didn't know this man from Adam me, it was just like, it was like a blessing stuff, But now my whole mental state of mind is straight ahead. I ain't looking back no more stuff. A lot of positive things happen, so I'm just going to soak all of it on this point and just take my God from it.
I don't think people quite understand how close this young man came to death. I know you heard him talking about the fact he's been stabbed, but I think that we need to understand that there are blessings that come in our lives. And him sitting here right now is a blessing, because he's not supposed to be here, but God had a plan. And we're seeing that plan right now. So I know it's kind of hard for me to talk about, but I can just touch upon it, because I think that part right there will help you realize the reason why he's staying focused and not going back.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, you and then you, go ahead. In the last question.
Well, Mr. Dwight, I understand that you said when you came home, you pretty much came home to nothing.
Right.
And by utilizing a better way in other agencies, what would you suggest for someone else coming out with nothing? Commitment is very important.
Right.
And knowing you personally, we have suggested that you do everything, humanly possible, like not to go back into selling the drugs. And it was very difficult for you because you was that person making this kind of money, and then now are you receiving any type of assistance, or are you involved in any other program to help you to maintain not going back to those behaviors?
Just a better way. I can call on y'all for any kind of help that I need, and even if y'all are part of it, y'all put aside whatever y'all doing to assist me with whatever kind of help I need. So, I guess
Go ahead, sir in the red shirt.
Yes. My question is for you, Matt. What would you say, this is a movement. You mentioned that you have been in 15 states or so, presenting this documentary. And I would like to have a better sense of how fast this movement is growing, and among who? Who's the kind of people who are supporting this movement? Of course, I have a sense now that students of universities, but I don't know who else is supporting this.
I think it's growing very quickly, and I think it's already having some impact based on some of the recent Obama administration decisions and other things like legalization of marijuana, et cetera, et cetera. There's been a lot of movement in the last 5 years. When I started filming this movie in 2009, there were no kind of public demonstrations on the streets of Philadelphia around any kind of criminal justice issue. And at some point, the Occupy movement happened, the Arab Spring happened, there was protests going on all over the world, and that really changed the climate in the United States and everywhere. And then some of the protests happened that you saw in the film, and that's been ongoing. I don't think it's been as quick in a city like Trenton, which I think could use some serious protests to put some pressure on the people there. And I'm about trying to make that happen. But the people who are organizing, a lot of people that have come out of prison, and so it's formerly incarcerated people themselves, are organizing very strong, particularly in places like California. There's a group called All of Us or None, and formerly incarcerated and convicted people's movement. They're doing some very inspiring work, and although California was kind of one of the worst as far as prison, overcrowding and prison abuse, they are also on the forefront now organizing for radical change. In New York State, there's been a lot of movement. They've reformed some of the Rockefeller drug laws, as well as solitary confinement use in that state. They've decreased the prison population by several thousand, and that's been because of formerly incarcerated people organizing themselves. Certainly students have a huge role, as they have in any social movement or movement for change in the past. And just this morning, I was in Philadelphia, and I presented with 3 classes at a charter school that deals with kids who are kind of like, it's their last resort school, like they've been kicked out of other schools, they've been involved in the justice system. And a young teacher, younger than me, found my film and was doing a 3-week session on mass incarceration, and was brave enough to show a radical film like this. And so going and talking to the kids who are being targeted by the system, and in some cases have just gotten their first offense and this and that, I think that's where we need to be moving, is trying to find young people who are being targeted before they're really caught up in the system, and also to inspire them. I think the way it sounds like Ruben was kind of caught from getting back into gang activity and sort of showing, here's another family, gang life is a form of family and a form of love when there's probably not much else available. And I think the movement can act as a family and as a support and love to people like that. So I'm very inspired seeing, but what I think, what we need to start doing is connecting the dots for organizing, because we don't hear about everything that's going on. And so what I'm really focusing on with some of the groups I'm working with, some of them here tonight, Campaign to End the New Jim Crow, Decarcerated Gay in Philadelphia, Incarcerated Nation in New York, is I want to start to connect the dots and have Trenton partner with Philadelphia, partner with New York, so we're all working together. That's how a national movement starts. Go ahead. Yes.
Thank you. So do you address the mental health component that would pretty much basically go along with coming out of prison and dealing with homelessness and post-traumatic stress and everything else that you deal with while you're in prison? And how do you address it?
Maybe Harry and Gale?
One of the things that I give family members that come to our support group meetings are, there's a pamphlet that Terrence Korsky, who is a chemically addiction psychologist, he created the post-incarcerated syndrome pamphlet, and you can go on his website and get it. It is one of the best tools that I have been able to share with family members to just sort of get them in the familiar with some of the symptoms that goes along with post-incarcerated syndrome, as well as post-traumatic stress disorder. And it's been a big help for a lot of people that have had the opportunity to read it.
Could you repeat that name of the website?
His name is Terrence Korsky, and the name of the, it's post-incarcerated syndrome, PICS, P-I-C it is. But I just Googled Terrence Korsky, post-incarcerated syndrome, it comes right up. It's like a 28-page pamphlet, and it's really good tool.
Just before Perry, I was wondering if we could pass, Jonathan, could you pass around the sign-up sheet? We're going to pass around a sign-up sheet for if you want more information about Broken on All Sides and screenings and work we're doing, but also on the far right side, if you're interested in more information about the Campaign to End the New Jim Crow, which has chapters in Princeton and Trenton. We're an activist group, we're an educational group, and we want to get more people involved. So just check the box, yes, I would like more information, or yes, I want to join. Thanks.
When it comes to mental health in the prison system, a large part of the population either have mental health issues, substance abuse issues, or dual diagnosis, dealing with both. And then the other portion is dealing with issues with education, learning disabilities. And so a lot of times with the combination of all those different things, that's why they go out and try to master the behavior. And when they come home, a lot of times they're not able to adjust or to supposedly re-enter society, but be realistic. A lot of them never were a part of society because of some of the issues and problems that we're facing. One of the ways that we feel we best deal with is when a person comes through our doors, we do an intake. And each and every person does an intake is a mental health professional. And so they can look and based upon the questions and how a person responds, they can find out and know if the person needs even more help. And so with that, we work together with the College of Jersey and we provide psychological evals. Because the problem, the issue that these individuals are facing is they've never been diagnosed or they have been misdiagnosed. And if we can work on that angle and find out what the issues and problems they're dealing with, then we can start to work on their level. You can't just tell a person who's having a mental health issue, you know what, get a job, you train, do this, do that. Well, they can't because of the fact they can't focus, because they're hearing voices, because they don't know what's going on, they don't know what's realistic and what's reality. Those are some of the issues that some of them are facing and never understood how a lot of issues that come about. And as far as post-traumatic stress, I'm going to be realistic with you. If you spend one day in prison, you're going to have some stress. You're going to be post-traumatic when you leave that facility. Because some of the things you're dealing with, whether it's the bugs or roaches, being told to strip, to squat, to spray, that's the meaning.
Oh, great. This is always what happens here. It's like 5 minutes left, like 40 hands go up. That's good. Okay, so in the green shirt, yeah, you turning around to look who's yeah, and then Rosemary and Gina. And let's do 1, 2, 3 in a row, and then we'll respond. Go ahead.
Mr. Perry. motivated you to start your organization?
And we'll hold on to that. Go ahead, Rosemary.
My question is for Mr. Perry and also for Gale. How do you receive funding? How do you fund the work that you do? Does it come from private sources or government sources, or is it just personal?
And Jeannie will come to you in a second. I'll let you guys respond. Go ahead, Perry.
What I started with drove me start, well, once again, I'm not going to say that I started. It was my father and I and two other individuals. We just saw a lot of individuals we know and cared about returning back to prison. There were not any options. And for me, being a person who was in training, it kind of helped my neighborhood out to see the guys who were coming home and not come back and rob me or rob my house or rob my neighbor. But the fact was, I'm going to be realistic with you. There has to be ways to get things done and other opportunities. And we want to see something productive and positive rather than seeing the same thing over and over again. A lot of times they were told, go here, go there, and unfortunately, the information was outdated, or the organization didn't help them. They didn't fit certain criteria. They weren't this age, they weren't this race, they weren't this height, they weren't married, they weren't single, they didn't do drugs, they did drugs, they were alcoholics, they were not alcoholics. And so we want to create a program where, come as you are. We will meet you at where you're at. If you need help, we're going to serve you. If you're a male, we're going to serve you. If you're female, we're going to serve you. If you're a child, we're going to serve you. Black, white, Latino, we're going to serve you. That's the reason why we started our program, because we felt there was a need.
And Perry, where do you get funding? Wherever you can.
I'm going to be realistic with you. The reason why I'm up here and I'm a corrections officer was the fact that I got hurt on the job. And so my pension and my father, who happened to get hurt on his job, about 6 months later, his pension helps keep our program running. And the fact is that 85% of our program comes from our pockets. And that's the reason why this past year we went from a staff of 8 to a staff of 3 to be able to let people go. Because of the simple fact that we do good programming, but at the same time, we can't get certain funding because we don't serve just this person or that person. And a lot of times it's hard days. My wife's sitting right there, and one quick thing to tell you about that amazing woman right there was before we even had a building, these individuals who were getting paid were at my door. This program is in my house. And I have 2 kids. And my wife still said, you know what? The people need to get service. So it was a trip going through the front door and the blood coming through the back door, interacting with each other, knowing what this is neutral territory. I'm here for services, and that's it. And as long as I got a breath, and as long as I got a dollar in my pocket, we're going to get this program running. Might not have no lights, but we're going to get the program running.
Yeah.
It's got to be a better way.
You know, the people doing this work, I mean, you know, we need more money. Nobody's in this for the money. And wherever we can get some, if you have any ideas, you know, the movement needs money. People need money. So come and talk to these folks afterwards if you know foundations or individuals who would be willing to donate. Go ahead.
I have a few campaigns women who never give up involved with right now, including the Jim Crow. And I love it because Michelle Alexander answered my dreams. Like I said, I've been around for 20-something years. I've been doing this work before the death of my husband because I was a prisoner's wife and I was running to the meetings in every state, every county that there was somebody talking about prisons. I got in my car to go because I didn't understand how innocent people could be locked up. And so I just didn't understand the criminal justice system. I was a food and beverage manager, and I could feed you good and treat you good at my dinner table, but didn't know anything about the criminal justice system. I had to educate myself and learn about prisons. And so one of the things I would like to tell the women is there's a national campaign called Free Her. A woman who I call, she reminds me of Michelle Alexander. She wrote a book called The Upper Bunkies. Her name is Andrea James. And we've had the pleasure to meet a couple times in different cities. And there's a national rally to free, well, it's just a rally to bring awareness to the mass incarceration of women. Now, since the men are gone, black women is the fastest growing prison population today. So, to me, it's genocide when you look at it. There's several campaigns that Women Who Never Give Up. I'm going to, okay, well, 23 years, so I'm going to bring it to one. We had a lot of work over the years and run into DC to help to crack the disparity. We also worked in New Jersey on this 1,000 feet school zone law. So I tell everybody to roll your sleeves up. Don't wait till it happens to someone you love. Get involved today, because this criminal justice system has morally bankrupted our country. Thank you.
We got to wrap up, so I'm going to have to, if you could be really quick, and Jean, I mean really quick, and then I'll call you. Go ahead.
One of the things that we really need people in the community for is to help us work towards community-based oversight of our prison system. In this conversation and many other conversations, we hear about reentry, we hear about sentencing, and we don't hear too much except when there are family members around or former prisoners about what's happening in the prisons, which are, in some cases in New Jersey, particularly violent, particularly racist. So one way to approach that and to get people really interested and motivated is to get them into the prisons in whatever way we can as volunteers, whatever way we can, but work legislatively for oversight where we go into our prisons and do oversight of what's going on inside, medical care, abuse, etc. We need to bring the Constitution and law and order into our prisons.
And you can learn more about the Bayside organizing that's going on. There's a handout here. Everyone should read about that. And we're just beginning to organize, Gale, Jean, and I, and others in the room to try and fight back against abuses coming out of Bayside Prison. And hold up. And then go ahead, sir, and then we'll have last comments from the panel and closing remarks.
So, Matt, I had a question for you and one for Ruby. How have you seen other states, other communities mobilize, right? Are there social networks that are being used? And what do you think would be best, what would be the best vehicle mechanism for Trenton?
It's a big question, right?
That's a good one. Other states are mobilizing our social networking, Facebook, Twitter, all of those social mechanisms are, to me, one of the number one, and the number one way to connect throughout the states. That is how that's how I've been successful with meeting women around the country through Facebook and different social networking entities. I think the best way to mobilize Trenton is through our faith-based community. What I wanted to say is another thing that Women Who Never Give Up is doing is we're working with the faith-based community and the prison ministries in each church in teaching them and training them the advocacy and entrepreneurship. And one of the things I think the entrepreneurship part that goes along with the advocacy is important because we're teaching people that are returning home how to become advocates and how to open up their own businesses because there are very little jobs for them. And the fact that the parole sanctions them for not being able to pay fines that they can't get a job because of the ban the box and all these collateral damages that go along with this, we've got to teach people a way to self-help themselves, self-sufficiency. So one of the things I think is important is that we work with our church ministries and we become the oversight when we go into the prison, not just to read the Bible, but to also advocacy work is very important.
So I don't think there's any silver bullet, but I do think that we need to see some more public protests to put pressure on the legislature and the state capitol to change some of the laws and to support people that are in prison and coming home. I think that we need to be very brave and start reaching out to young people of color that we maybe haven't so far. And I think it's up to us, actually, to reach out our hand first. And it may get slapped away a few times, it's hard for, I think, certain people to try and do that, but we need to. And we need to show them that they're loved and that we want them, to be successful. And so I think they're crucial. And if we start tapping into some of those young folks and politicize them, when they change and they are seeing this system, I'm falling into this trap that they want me to play in this system. I've seen it before, and these kids get super radical and are amazing organizers, right? So I think we need to do that. I think we need to tap into the faith community, absolutely. And the campaign to end the new Jim Crow started as kind of a group of churches in the area that is organizing around this issue. So I think that's right. And then I think it's such a big issue, so how do you protest mass incarceration? I think you have to latch on to individual cases or campaigns or abuses that pop up, and you don't always know what it's going to be. Right now, again, something has presented itself with the transfer of a bunch of prisoners out of Bayside Prison, Southern New Jersey, that are now speaking out and saying, don't send us back to Bayside. There is horrific racist abuse going on there. We need to listen and we need to start organizing. So I would please pick up the Bayside handout and talk to us afterwards. Just real quick, I'm going to let Ruben and Perry say any last comments, and then I'm sure we're all happy to stick around for 10 or 15 minutes to talk more informally afterwards, and I'll ask Joanne to come up and just give some closing announcements. Ruben?
I just wanted to say thank you to Better Way for helping me. I'm actually a person who almost been killed more than 10 times. Like Mr. Shaw said, I shouldn't be here. I got stabbed in my head. I got stabbed in my arm, about as long as your leg, where my insides hanging out. I went through a lot of torture as a kid, everything. So I didn't have no guidance. So it was like all this is new to me, and it actually feels good. So I'm gonna keep striving to do what's good, and I'm gonna keep doing whatever the program asks me to do or me to do. I'll stop wherever I want to come. Show my love, show the same love that he showed me, because anytime I call out, it never really left. So, and that's the good thing about it. I highly recommend this program to anybody that's coming home from prison. And actually, I'm still in touch with a lot of staff in the prisons, and I'm going to actually talk to them, and so that they can recommend people that's coming home and in contact that way program.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to say a few things in closing. One of the hats that I wear is chairman of the Mercer County Reentry Task Force. I was newly appointed to that position. I know a lot of times people hear about task force and hear about committees and they think it's never about meetings. In my mind, I'm still fairly young, so I want to try and be a little radical with the new leadership of the Reentry Task Force. And so we're trying to do a lot of different things, and sometimes I get a little above myself and I gotta get grounded. But one of the things we're going to be doing now is opening the doors to the Reentry Task Force. Because for a long time we just saw service providers, but the individuals who need the services weren't invited to take. And so that kind of was an idea that kind of just wouldn't happen over and over again. Why don't we have individuals who are serving to be here to take? And as I say that, is to answer the question that you just asked about how can we mobilize. One of the most important things that Trenton needs to have and used to have and is starting to have now is consistency. A lot of times in Trenton, things are seasoned. Things happen, people respond, people march, people go home. Things happen, people march, people respond, people go home. That can't be right now in Trenton. It has to be people coming together like this, consistent, church coming together, no matter what your religion is, organizations coming together and being consistent. Matt talked about having the hand slapped. We had a discussion a few weeks ago in the group about What about our youth? Some individuals say, well, we just can't help them. I refuse to believe that. The question posed to them was, what if that was you that's not saying they can help? Where would you be? Dead, in prison. So I said to say that we have to reach out to those kids, but we can't be scared of those kids. Those ones on the block, when they walk past your car and locking your door, how are you helping them? You just reinforce the simple fact. You see them as a thug, as a gangbanger. So you have to extend your hand also. That means people from Princeton, people from Lawrence, people from York, to those kids in Trent. That's how it's going to happen.
Well, on behalf of everyone in the room, I know we thank Matt and Gale and Ruben and Perry very much for your comments and your insight, and Matt for your film, and all of you for being here. And as it's been said, we need to stay connected. For a long time, here I am, worked in the Juvenile Detention Center. I told stories. That's all I did. I told stories. People said, what's your ministry? I said, I have a ministry of showing up. And I actually didn't get my hand slapped very many times because they know glad I cared. And I liked them and I paid attention. We can all start with just that simple thing of looking someone in the eye and saying, hey, which can surprise some people that you bothered to do so. So let's stay very, very connected. To that end, I would like to invite all of you who are interested to come yourselves, ask others to come to our next meeting of the Princeton chapter campaign to end the New Jim Crow meeting, which is on Wednesday, April 23rd, 7:30 at the Princeton Public Library, where we will have a practical and hands-on conversation on ways you can engage with what is going on at Bayside. The need for awareness and action is urgent. So I would invite you Wednesday, April 23rd, 7:30, Princeton Public Library. Please pick up pieces of paper and over at that table and speak to us as we leave so that we can all know one another better. And thank you. Thank you for